On in Bojo, Mr. McLeod Mondaya, Mr. McLeod here, and today is the last lesson in our first unit. Today's lesson will be on VII C form phrases. And so, more basically, what that means is learning how to ask who or what questions and turning verbs into nouns. So, a recap on verb forms. A form, or independent clauses, are plain sentences that make sense on their own without further information. For example, the door is open. Shkwandem jesin. Don't need any other information to understand what's going on there. Next is B form. Our dependent clauses are phrases that sound incomplete on their own without further information. For example, if the door is open, notice how without more information it feels incomplete, like you're waiting on something. This is why it's a dependent clause. It's reliant on further information. Last is our C form. Well, it's the last one that I at least know of. We'll cover it and its functions as far as I know. So C form functions. C form has a few functions that I can educate you on. In English, we attach the suffix er to a verb to change to a verb to a noun. For example, fish, like the act of fishing, and then we add er to it. Fisher is the noun for someone who fishes. One of C form functions is to do this, is to turn verbs into nouns. So one example here is Shkwandem jesin, the door is open. And then we have the B form counterpart, Gishpin Shkwandem jesing, if the door is open. And lastly, the C form, Shkwandem jesing, the door that is open. So this is it in its noun form. So we had an added prefix and we kept our B form suffix. So this is understood as a noun here. And then this is an A form verb and a B form verb, and then a C form, either verb or noun. But in this case, we're using it as a noun. So C form is used for grammar patterns like what and who, and some other ones. So grammar pattern what is usually started with a wagnen or onde plus C form. For example, wagnen eje sing ishkwandem. What door is open? And then for grammar pattern who, it's usually started with a wanen. You might hear it as an onde as well, plus C form. So we have wanen gagon ked, who is fishing. This one will be more applicable in the next unit, the who grammar pattern. So sit tight for that C form lesson for the next unit. C form is also used for the grammar pattern realized after. This is the type of after when it's it's happened. It's not like the unrealized counterpart where you talk about it theoretically, like after I come home today, I'm going to. It's almost like a future after. It's unrealized, and this realized after is more of like after I did this, this happened, and so it's understood that it happened already. So grammar pattern is just plain C form. So I have an example here in Nipissing dialect. Ga bang zion, after I was dry, from our Gawin Gindaswin Dao C 2019. Next is another example. Chike ting gaba pit, after he laughed real hard. So our reference there is ektawad gekka jik. So it just shows that C form by itself can mean after. So C form features. C form has some key features that differentiate itself from A form and B form. C form uses initial change on its verbs and or prefixes. C form uses most of the same suffixes as B form. C form negative uses the same suffixes as B form negative. This is why we taught B form before C form. C form uses a different suffix than B form for their noun transitions if the noun is plural. So we'll go over that later when we change verbs into nouns or more plural nouns. Initial change. Initial change is where we change the first vowel sound of the verb or the prefix if present to a different sound. So we're just focusing on the vowels right now. So for example here we have bikshka, it is broken in A form. Then we have bikshkog, if it is broken in, or sorry, this is A form and then B form here. And then lastly, C form, bogshkog, that which is broken. And so we can see here that that first double I sound changed to a double A sound. This is an example of initial change. The double I changed to a double A. Changing the vowel sound can sound like a drastic change, but we do similar things in English, and sometimes even more drastic than just changing a vowel sound. So we have throw versus through. Notice how the first vowel sound changed. No versus new. Again, first vowel sound changed in English. Run versus ran. Again, first vowel sound's just changing here. We're doing this in English. Have versus had. So this is a consonant change here. The V sound changed to a D sound. In Ojibwe, we don't have that. We just focus on the first vowel sound. So this is an example of why English is harder to understand than Ojibwe. So we have begin, begun, began. Now this is the second vowel sound that's being changed. Again, another inconsistency in English, making it harder to learn. Whereas in Ojibwe, we just focus on the first vowel sound. So we have read versus read. So this one isn't spelled differently, it's just pronounced differently and is very easy to indicate. So again, English is so much easier. We have mouse versus mice. Another spelling change here. The AUS is changed to IC, which is just so much more consistent than our Ojibwe, hint, hint, wink, wink. We have hoof versus hooves. This one is a little bit better because the F sound kind of sounds like a V sound, and then we're just adding that plural S sound to it. But again, it's changing one sound to another. And also has a silent E in it for whatever reason. Lastly, we have think versus thought. Now, all these words are related to each other, but think changed the vowel sound and the last consonant sound in a very drastic way, whereas in Ojibwe initial change, we are just changing the first vowel sound. So there's no reason why we should avoid using initial change as language learners because it sounds drastic or really different. It's just a small change compared to all the stuff we're used to saying and hearing in English. So initial change has two styles that I've noticed. We have the old style that some dialects still practice to this day, and a modern Eastern style, what most native Nipissing speakers practice today. So we're going to have our old style over here. We're going to list all the vowel sounds, what they'll change to. And then we'll have modern Eastern style over here. And those vowels are going to be color-coded and underlined just to differentiate the differences. So we have the A sound changes to an E sound. In the old days, it was anoki and then changed to enokid with that B form suffix. All the C form versions will have a B form suffixes attached to them. So our modern example, is changed to an S sound, or we attach a prefix known as a hanging E, which is an E with a hyphen. So we have our secret A there, anoki, and then our C form version, enkid. So because of vowel dropping, we got rid of that O there. So enkid is the C form example. Next, in the old days, they had a double A and it changed to an aya sound. So they have akwaze, he or she is sick, and then it would change to ayakwazit, she or he that is sick. So in today's modern Nipissing style, our double A's, we don't really get rid of them. We just add a hang prefix. So oxe, he or she is sick, becomes eoxid. Next, E was the old E from before was changed to an aye. So for example, debwe, he or she speaks the truth, was changed to diabwed, and that's he or she who speaks the truth. So in our modern day E, we just use the hanging E again, E with a hyphen, as a prefix instead of changing the E sound. So debwe becomes edebwed, again meaning the same thing. He or she that speaks the truth. Next, single I is changed to an E sound, So we got ikidu, she or he says, and then ekidud. In our modern day, becomes either an S sound or we can use a hanging E. So again, that I sound is still there in our speech. We just de-stress it for now so we don't pronounce it. So kidu is the A form version. Ekdud is the C form version. So we just change that secret I sound to an E sound. Next, double I, E, becomes an ah sound. So in our example, nime, she or he dances, it changes to namid, he or she that dances. And so in Nipissing, again, double I can change to a double A, or again, we can use the hanging E. So nime is our A form example, and then namid is one example. If you want to use the hanging E, it would be enimid. Single O, becomes a WE sound. So in the old days, they used to say o domino for he or she is playing. And then the C form version, we dominoed, he or she that plays. So our sound can either be a we, or a hanging E. So again, we have that secret O sound. In modern day Nipissing, we just say dumna instead of o domino. And then our examples will either sound like we dominoed or edumnud. And lastly, our double O sound becomes a wa sound. So bodwe, he or she builds a fire, became boadwed. And modern day, double O just uses the hanging E prefix. So bodwe would be changed to ebodwed. And I should have spaced this out a little bit better, but yeah. So bodwe is the A form version. Ebodwed is the C form version. So we use a lot of hanging E's. We use hanging E's for all the long vowel sounds, double A, E. We can use it for double I and double O. So rules about initial change for Nipissing dialect. Initial change affects the first vowel sound in either the verb, prefix, tense marker or other prefixes, or the verb if there's no prefix. Sometimes speakers elect to initial change drop vowel sounds, so they bring back the dropped vowel sound, change it based on the initial change rules we just went over, and then resyncopate the verb as necessary. That's where they adjust the order of stressed and de-stressed vowel sounds. So we're going to have our full vowel forms here with all their glorious short vowels, the B form versions, and then we're going to do the C form versions over here. So bigoshka was the old way of saying it, that there's an O in there. So we're changing the first vowel sound after the B form version. So we have bigskog with the suffix there. So we're going to change that double I to a double A. Bogskog, or you can use the hanging E prefix, ebigskog. Next one, we have bibigshka or bibigoshka. So remember, we're changing either the first vowel sound in the verb or the prefix. So usually when this happens, we do that to the prefix, as indicated here. So bibigshkog. So single I becomes what sound according to our rules? An E sound. Very good. So bibigshkog becomes bebigshkog. Not a very big difference compared to our English examples. Next we have gibigoshka. So that should have been bracketed because that's a short vowel sound that we often drop. So again, what sound are we going to change here? Is this double I here, double I there? Correct. It's going to be the double I on the gi because that's tense markers in the way. We're only doing the first vowel sound of either the verb or prefix if present. So double I changes to a what sound as indicated on our screen? Double A again. So gibigshkog is going to become gobigshkog. All right, moving on here. We have onjebigoshka. So we have an O sound here, a secret O sound there, secret O sound here. So again, which vowel sound are we going to change? It's going to be that O sound, remember? And so in the B form version, we don't pronounce that. But we need to bring it back for its initial change. So we do that to the first vowel sound, either for the verb, the prefix, and the secret vowel sounds that are in front that are often dropped. So njebigshkog becomes wenjebigshkog or enjebigshkog. So our O sounds change to WEs or E sounds. And the last one here, we got ginjebigoshka. So again, we are changing the first vowel sound that occurs in the verb or the prefixes if present. So which one is that one? Yes, the double I here on the gi. So we have ginjebigshkog is the B form, and then so the C form version would be gonjebigshkog. There you go. And I believe we're coming to the last one here. Oh, I think this is second last one. So we got migisin. So back in the day, we didn't drop all these vowel sounds, but we have different options here. So again, we're changing the first vowel sound we see here. So it's not this I, it's not that I, it's this I. So the B form version is mgising. Mgising. So we're going to change that I and we'll have to re-syncopate. So single I changes to a what sound? An E sound. So we're going to have meg, probably sing. There we go. Meg sing. So it's time to talk about our hanging E prefix. The hanging E is a prefix modern speakers use to replace old style initial change for vowel sounds double A, E, single O, double O. It's also accepted to use the hanging E prefix in place of the rest of the vowel sounds. So the other ones that we talked about before, you can use the hanging E as well. Just to know that if you do, you're probably overproducing that sound and not representing Nipissing dialect as authentic as you would if you followed these rules. So when you can't find a vowel sound in between a cluster of consonants in the word, feel free to use the hanging E as well. And just when in a pinch, when all else fails, just use the hanging E. So C form versus B form. Most C form inflections use B form suffixes. When you're using C form for its plural noun function, often third person plural, they are those, we'll use a suffix different from the B form counterpart. So for example, here we have a B form example. Gishben bikshka nim dwewes jignan. If the phones are broken, and then our B form version, or C form version, bakshkagin, or ebikshkagin nim dwewes jignan. The phones that are broken. So notice how our double I in our verb here changed to a double A, and then instead of using our B form suffix G, we use the suffix GIN. Also have the hanging E example here. But when you do the nouns, the third person plural nouns, it's common to have a different suffix than what we would use in B form. So when using the plural noun function of C form, all VII words end with GIN instead of the B form suffix G. So let's practice some C form. So we're going to have our full vowel forms here, B form examples here, and then C form tests here. So niska dud is our verb for it's storming. So niska dug is the B form version. So all that we need to do for this one is apply some initial change. So locate our verb. There's no secret verb in here. So the first vowel sound is a double I, and double I's are changed to double A's. So what we're left with is na ska dug. Next one, moshkanem gud. So we have a secret I sound in there, but remember we're just changing the first vowel sound, so that I doesn't really matter. So B form, moshkanem gug. Again, we're changing our double O sound, and double O sounds, we don't change them, we just add the hanging E in place. Emoshknem gug, right there. Next one, gimewan, for it's raining. Gmewang. So we need to change the first vowel sound. Are we going to change this E or this A? That's correct. We're going to change that secret I sound that we have there, and single I changes to an E sound. So what we're left with is gemewang, gemewang. Next one we have wijesin. So we have no secret vowel sounds to worry about. We're changing the first vowel sound in the verb phrase. That's the prefix there. So the double I and the we there is going to change. So wijesin, we have our suffix there. Now we just need to do initial change to our prefix. So double I's are changed to double A sounds. Wajesing. Next we have kchebigo shka. Again, first vowel sound in our verb or prefix is being changed. So in this case, it's not the double I here, it's not the I here, it's not the O there, it's the first one we say. So our B form version is kchebikshkog. Again, just because it's not there doesn't mean we don't initial change on it. So single I becomes an E sound. So we're going to have getchebikshkog. This is our last one here. We have zenagud. So we have some A sounds here that are short A sounds. We're going to drop one for the other at some point. So znagug. So let's do a noun plural one. So we're going to do initial change to which A? The secret A that we didn't pronounce. We're going to re-stress it. And that A sound is going to become an E sound. We're going to change that G sound to a different suffix. What suffix are we going to change it to? If you said GIN, gin, that is correct. So what we're left with is zengugin. So we brought back that second A and got rid of that middle A. Zengugin. So a recap of today's lesson. So C form is how we convert verbs into nouns, say realized after, and used for grammar patterns like who and what. There's probably some other versions that Mr. McLeod either missed or doesn't know of. There's a lot of stuff I don't know. For C form, we use initial change rules established earlier in this lesson. Most C form inflections use the same suffix as B form, except one. Which one? Noun plurals. So when we're changing verbs into nouns and we're pluralizing them, they have a different suffix, which is gin, gin. Misaye. That's it for now. So as always, we'll go into our worksheet for what's expected of us there. All right, so this first activity, we're matching picture to the verb, the singular verb or plural. So we got bikshkawan. So you guys should remember what bikshka is at this point. And so WAN is the plural version. So we're looking for a bunch of things that are broken. The only thing that looks like that is C, a bunch of broken phones here. So I'll put in a C here. And that's what's expected of you here. So I'll leave the rest of that for you guys to do. Multiple choice here. So again, what's happening in this example? I guess we're looking at the verbs here. So we got jabapte, it is rolling. Moshnem gud, it is full. Pshishkwanon, they are empty. And bikshkawan, they are broken. So we have one box here that we're talking about, and it's full. So your answer is Moshnem Gud. All right. So that's what's expected of you guys in for these ones. I'll leave the rest of these for you guys to do. So what is the main characteristic differences between B form and C form? So one of them is when we change verbs into nouns that are pluralized nouns. So what kind of suffix do they use? And then also too, what do we do to the first vowel sound in the verb or prefix if present? So that's what we went over in today's lesson. That's right here. Define initial change. What does it affect or change? So initial change we went over in this lesson. What are we changing? What do we change in what, or if what is present, etc. Go back to your notes or back into the lesson if you don't remember those answers. All right, so match the vowel sounds to the original initial change counterparts. So we have a single A sound here. What does single A change to? So single A changes to an E sound. So I'm just going to put a C here. And we can cross that out or whatever. All right, so don't need that one anymore. You guys can do the rest here based on what we covered in today's lesson. Again, this is for the old style initial change rules. So what is our hanging E? So I want you to explain what our hanging E is. Is it a suffix? Is it a prefix? When do we use it? Etc. Here's an area where we can indicate that. Which vowel sounds do modern speakers use hanging E in place of original initial change? So which ones did we use a hanging E for? I'll answer one here so you guys know. Just put an X or a check mark, whatever have you. So double A we don't get rid of, but we just use a hanging E in its place. What are some of the functions of C form in Nipissing Nishnaabemwin? So we talked about changing one thing to another. In today's lesson, we also covered 3 grammar patterns that C form is used for. So what are they? If you don't remember, again, go back to the lesson. It's covered there. All right, so what's the difference in meanings for the C form plural suffixes G or GIN? So which one do we use? When do we use G and when do we use GIN for C form? All right, match the C form grammar patterns to the English equivalent. All right, so cover this first one here. Wagnen plus C form. Wagnen is what? So we can put in a C there. I don't know why it's so small, but change that right now. Let's see here. There you go. All right. So again, I'll leave the rest of these to do. We covered this in today's lesson. All right. So we got Akhenaten Nishnaabemwin and a bunch of English. So take a wild guess. We're translating English into Ojibwe. So we have the boxes that are broken. So when I give you something where it says the noun that is or are and a verb, this is where we go from changing our verbs to nouns. So we need the word for boxes. All right. So if you should know the word for boxes. If not, we can always look it up in the dictionary. Remember, use the singular version first, and then. So not this one because it says VAI next to it. We want the NI version, noun, inanimate. So mkuk, and then the suffix is an. So mkukan. And then our verb for broken, again, if you don't know it, you can look it up in the dictionary. But you guys should know it by this point. So our verb is big shka. Now, since this is, we need initial change, where you can do that to the first vowel sound, which is double I here. Double I changes to double A, bog, shka. And since we're changing to a pluralized noun, we're going to use the suffix GIN. Mkukan bog shka again. The boxes that are broken. All right, so I'll leave the rest of these for you guys to do. We'll get to our last activity here. Akhenaten Nishnaabemwin and a bunch of Ojibwe. So I'm going to translate these. Do the first one here. So again. If you don't know what that means, we can look it up in the dictionary. So again is talking about a phone. Put in here the phone. And then we have bogskog. So I remember from our last activity here, we went from bigskog to bogskogen. So since we only have two words here, and there's only two words in this Ojibwe, so this must be a like turning a verb into a noun. So the phone that is, and then if bogskogen was the plural, bogskog doesn't have that in, so that must be singular. So the phone that is what? Broken. Okay. So there we go. Misayenongum migwacha bsindweyeg ao bama pi koa binim.